Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Today, we're going to talk about the IMGA. Who is familiar with the IMGA? Just a few people. Just for the few people who are not familiar with the IMGA, it's the International Mobile Gaming Awards. We started this in 2004, and it's kind of an industry recognition for the best mobile game made in different regions. So now we are running the fourth year IMGA in Middle East, North Africa. We've been looking at 120 games. These ladies and gentlemen have been playing the 63 nominated games yesterday. So they did a great job. So please give them a warm applause for their hard work. They will tell you how they did all that and what they learned from it, what kind of tips they're going to give you to win an award next year, because of course there will be a fifth IMGA MENA. But before we're getting into this, we would like to introduce the jury members, starting with my neighbor here on the left, Ahmed Aalsafar.
Hi, I'm Ahmed. I'm a co-founder from Play Arabic. We publish mobile games, and I'm in the industry, especially on MENA, focus on MENA region for like 10 years now.
Hi everyone, my name is Sonja Angesleva. I'm the product lead at Zynga, so I'm responsible for product and analytics. I've done games for a very long time, as in a small studio, larger studios. I've done like software development at Unity. I've been an investor. As well as a board member and advisor for small studios for at least 10 years.
Hey everyone, I'm Christian Calderon, CEO, co-founder at Gamejam. Previously, I was CRO at Ketchup, makers of 2048, and I've held executive roles at Dots and Kixeye, which was acquired by the Stillfront Group. And I'm also an investor and advisor at various game studios.
Hello, my name is Chris Winn, and I'm a level/content designer at King. I've been at King for about a year now, the Candy Crush guys. And before that, I was at Outplay Entertainment, a small Scottish company, for about 2 years. Before that, I did bits and bobs, but I've been in the games industry for about 4 years now. I talk at student events, go to universities, talk about how to get into the games industry and things like that.
Hello, my name is Martine Spaans. I am the owner of Tamalaki Publishing, and in cooperation with our partner FGL, we publish free-to-play games, mainly for an audience of women 40+. So it's like Hidden Object, Match 3, time management, puzzle games. Been doing that for about 7 years now, and I've been in the industry for about a total of 12 years.
You just met me, so we'll go to...
New audience, sir. I'm
Rena Abbas, CEO of Fuchs Studios. It's a gaming company and publisher, and also CEO of Speakatex, an academy to teach kids and teens video games. I will add also I'm a university teacher and mom, also for 3 little monsters.
I'm very pleased to be able to pronounce my name properly here. In the UK, I call myself Shahid Ahmed. Over here, I can say Ahmed and Shahid, which is very nice. I've been in the industry since 1982. My resume is way too long to list, but I'm currently running a small developer in the UK.
Thank you. I would like to ask the same question to everybody. What are you looking for in a game? When you've played these 63 games at the IMGA judging, what were you looking for? How do you manage the information you're getting from the game, from the team behind it, the region, the regional aspects? What are you looking for?
No one wants to start, I will. Basically, I have 2 answers to that question, because there's 2 different ways that I look at games. Normally, I look at games as a publisher. So for example, tomorrow morning during the beginning pitch, that's also what I'll be doing. I'll be looking at things like the commercial viability and do I think the retention is good and the monetization options, etc. But yesterday, during the IMGA judging, I looked at games from a different perspective. I looked more at things like originality and the type of games that could sort of move the mobile games industry forwards by sort of pushing the boundaries and introducing new and original things. So yeah, there's a bit of two different hats to be worn there.
Thank you.
Yeah, same here. I mean, at Ketchup, I was looking at thousands of games for the totally different mindset for the IMGA. I was trying to put myself in the shoes of the target demographic. And then from that perspective, I was looking at mainly three things. On the technical side, how it functioned technically, were there bugs, crashes. On the art side, visually, how did it feel? Also, from an audio perspective, was there music, sound effects? And then lastly, from a game design perspective, could I put could I put myself in the perspective of the game developer? What challenges was I trying to solve? Was this game something that could retain, get me to come back the next day? The one thing I did not look at was how the game's monetized, or the market, like the market commercial potential of the game. Mainly the three things that I mentioned: technical, visual, and audio, and then the game design itself.
Thank you.
Games are developed to, create emotions. So, of course, when starting a game, that's one thing I want to experience. Like, what's the emotional sensation that I got out of the game. The other is more about like user experience. So user experience design, considering things like, do I understand what the developer is, expecting me to do? Can I manage the interaction, as that's of course one of the core elements of all types of digital games.
Another question? Because I don't have anything.
Let's move to another question, because we've covered pretty much the issue of how we're going to how we're evaluating the games that we're looking for.
Yeah, I want to add
Yes.
as a local developer,
Yeah.
Adding to the gameplay and the design, the art, music. I was looking for a game to be really done from the region, to be really appealing internationally, and the scale, is it scalable? It can be appealed for everyone. It can compete in the US, Europe market as a local game. It was really important for me as a local developer and publisher to find this in these games.
Thank you. Yeah, so the local aspect of the game, how did you experience that? Maybe you have Ahmed, you have a lot of experience in bringing Western games to the Arabic market, but also the other way around. What kind of tension do you see in doing these cross-cultural marketing efforts?
In general, from the games that we had.
In general, yeah.
In general, I think we have the potential, but still we need the experience. And sometimes I just to try it. If we talk about the Arabic developers, we still need a lot of time and experience. I'm talking here about mobile. I know there is a lot of console developers that are way advanced, and they are a long time, especially in Jordan. They are start 2000 something. They start to work. So I'm not talking about that. We are talking about mobile. So we still need time to develop ourselves. If we take to the numbers, neighbor regions, we are participating in the event as well. That's the Turkey and Iran. They are more advanced in that way. But that also means that we can reach that as well. We need to focus on what we do in the region. The global will come after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't have to make it all localized Arabic. We can make general things, especially if it's casual games. It will work everywhere.
Chris, I have a question for you. When you were looking at the games, many of the games that were submitted to MENA, you were talking about diamonds in the rough, a couple of times, as if they were lacking something. What are they actually lacking?
Well, I think you can approach this from two directions, right? Like you can say what they're lacking, or you can say what they have. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about what they have first. A few people have already mentioned that this isn't a competition based around commercial viability, and I think that's really important. Whenever you're submitting a game to anything like this, understand what makes the competition unique, and that's what makes this one unique. So we're recognizing design excellence, audio excellence. We're not worrying about if it's going to make money. So it's totally fine for a game to have a little bit of clunkiness, and sometimes that can be a bit charming. It's okay to be clunky. It's okay to have some jank in the tank, and as long as you're doing something interesting and unique, then there's still something to appreciate, and that's kind of what I was trying to dig into when I was looking at a lot of the games yesterday. You could play some games and you could understand what they were going for, what they were implying if it was developed further, and sometimes it's worth appreciating that as well, especially for some of the awards, like the best upcoming game. You can just look at, this is where they are, but this is where they're aiming to be, this is the world that you're seeing they're implying, so let's reward that, let's recognize that as well.
Thank you. Sonja, maybe you have something to add about that aspect of the games, that they are lacking. They have something that is very unique and rich, but they're also lacking something to make it a big hit.
So it's without now getting sort of case by case, but I can say a few things. One is that I think Unity is fantastic. It's a great tool to get started in games development. It's also, I think, Unity Asset Store is great and tutorials are great as well. But and I also I like to start things with, for example, replicating the tutorial game and going a bit further from there. But I think one thing that I think was quite evident in some of the games were that the ideas didn't really go that much further from the tutorials. So of course the assets, the scenes are different, but still the thinking didn't really evolve that much beyond these tutorials or templates. That's one thing, and also I think I already mentioned the user experience, but that actually is critical, especially when developing mobile games. Players really do not have a patience to try to figure out what the developer is trying for you to do. So if they don't understand the controls, it might be a bit tricky to deliver the story or the message you are trying to deliver. So those are always I think I was very impressed about the general quality of the games. So it's more about sort of rough diamonds than actually that there wasn't something more sort of wrong in those. But I think few points to consider as a developer.
Thank you. I have a question for Ren, because she was a jury member last year, and she's again a jury member this year because she's such a great judge and very knowledgeable about the region. If you compare the entries or the nominees of last year to this year, what are the differences?
Yeah. I'll start with the positive things. It's much better than last year. I think the graphics are better this year, the storytelling. I think because of the winner of last year, so everyone was focusing on to have a little story in the game. The graphics should be a little bit better. So the graphics were really good, the sound, the music, better than last year. I'm really happy with the graphics. So we had a really big competition in the graphics section. But I think the missing till now, the learning curve. She was talking about this learning curve. Yeah. Some of the games, most of the games were really difficult to play it from the beginning. So it should not be really, the learning curve should be really, it's a critical thing, it should be easy but not a long time. And we can't start with a really hard, hard level, So the learning curve is still missing, and the gameplay is really important, so it should be fun. The games should be fun. So till now, the comparing last year and this year also, most of the games, not most of the games, they're missing the fun factor. And games should be fun, even educational or PC games or hyper casual, anything should be fun. So I think because we're missing, we don't have, like I said before, education in gaming or expertise in the region to really help young people to have education in this, and that's why we have this conference this year and last year and hopefully next year to have this communication or connections with expertise to have much better games next year.
Yeah, Shahid, do you have anything to add to what Ren just said? I remember you saying something very interesting that I found very intriguing. You said it's important that we create characters from the region that are heroes, our own heroes, and that we are not trying to duplicate heroes that are already created. There's certain cultural aspects that have, according to what I understood from what you were saying, have a huge potential in the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's a very difficult and sensitive subject. The issue of representation, or should I say misrepresentation, certainly in the West, of anybody with an Arabic background or a Muslim background. One which I struggled with personally. I mean, obviously living in the West, you're exposed to this through your whole life. More so recently, and when I say recently, I mean the last 15 years. And it's very easy, given that we have grown up and been exposed to this for such a long time, for us to make the mistake of just copying models that already exist, because implicit in those models is the representation that casts people with my skin color, your skin color, many of you, or your cultural or religious background in a negative light. And when I say negative light, I mean an extremely negative light, i.e. the bad guy, always the bad guy. Or, in the case of the females, they're either overtly sexualized in an Orientalist manner, or they're subjugated and oppressed. Now I come here to Jordan, I look out in the audience, in the auditorium this morning, and there is a greater female representation in that audience than in any event in the West. And I wonder why that message doesn't get through back in the UK, because all I ever see over there is, oh, Arab countries backwards, their women are oppressed, and I sure didn't see much oppression today, let me tell you. You know, these ladies can hold their own, and nobody's telling them what to do. I wouldn't be surprised it was very much the other way around. Certainly is in my house. You know, so the serious point here is that we shouldn't fall into that mental trap. We are all enculturated by the milieu that we have to live in, whether we like it or not. People like myself are mentally colonized, no matter how much we try and fight it, because it just becomes routine. It becomes your daily life. You're not even aware of it. You know, people I'm very, very close to who don't experience this don't even see it until I point it out to them. Yeah, so I think it's really important that we don't just copy the models that exist in the media right now and then cast the Arab or the Muslim or whatever as the good guy and then the white guys as the bad guy. That's not right either. I think what is much better is just to put people who are not normally in a positive frame in that positive frame. The stories don't have to be completely different. You don't have to revert to type. You don't have to say, oh, we're going to take stories from our background and our heritage and we're going to push those out. That's one way of doing it, but it's a cliched way. The other way is just to take the stories that are everywhere, and the stories from this part of the world are as profound as any other, if not more so. In fact, you could argue that much of the, never mind the stories, but much of the moral code that the world exists under came from this part of the world, right? Going right back to the Old Testament and perhaps further back still.
So I think that's really important. Take ownership of your representation, but don't necessarily be influenced by the representational archetypes that already exist.
Thank you very much. I want to move to the end of this session. First, I want you to attend the awards tonight at 6 o'clock. Don't forget, you're all expected to be there. We have a lot of surprises, don't we? But we're not going to tell anybody right now.
You should tell me that before.
So it's going to be fun. It's going to be not very long. It's going to be about an hour. There's some. I'm looking again at Ren. There's a big surprise, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge surprise.
Huge surprise. Yeah. So so that's all happening at 6 o'clock at the Zynga building, which is very close by here. And now I'd like to open for some questions that you may have. Anybody has a question? Basically anything you can, yes. A microphone is coming. Why don't you come over here and use this mic? Oh, okay.
And transactable in with the minute with every single.
Translator.
From the other room. Do you want to just say it and we'll repeat it back?
Oh, maybe that's long enough.
The trouble, first of all. Our moderator here, the first question he asked, what was some things that you would like to see in games? My question is, what are things that you don't want to see in games, like cliches or like something that you hope people would avoid in making games?
Copycats.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's.
To answer that actually, because even a good copycat is a good thing.
Yeah.
Someone has something that you make say, "Wow, I will play that." It's a whole package. You cannot say, "I don't want that. I want to see that," because in such a competition, it's the whole game. We are not looking from the commercial aspect. So
exactly. So if you answer that question, you have to give two answers. You know, one with the hat of a jury member of IMGA, and the other one with.
The first one, it will be no restriction. It should be a good game in general. If you have a wow effect, it will win. Definitely something. From the other side, you will need a session, a long, like half an hour, just to tell you what please don't do if you want a game or work on commercial
success.
Be successful in a commercial way.
Yeah, for me, because I see tons of games that are being copied all the time. I mean, it can obviously be successful business-wise, but for the games that we saw in the IMGA, the ones that stood out were not the games that were copying. They were the games that just tried a different approach. And I think for me, those really stood out because they were unique and they caught my attention and they drew me into the game, they drew me into the story. Whereas opposed to a game where I kind of understood what they were doing, it was a little less unique and I was able to spot faults a little more easier because I've seen it done before hundreds of times. There was another interesting thing that we saw where there were fundamentally similar mechanics, but they were mashed together slightly differently. And I thought those were pretty unique as well. Taking a familiar core mechanic and then combining it with a different metagame that you haven't seen before. So that approach was, I thought, kind of unique. The one thing that I did not, that I saw a common mistake was there were some games that had a lot of content, but it was still missing polish of like the first 1 to 2 seconds of gameplay. So what are you doing every 1-2 seconds? Some slight polish was needed in the core controls of the application of the game, and that kind of made the whole experience a little bit worse. So I would say, like, what are you doing every 1 to 2 seconds is really important to focus on.
Really quick, don't worry, not as long as the last one. So just to add what you were saying, absolutely spot on. 2 mistakes to avoid. Number 1, make sure that it's not crashing and not running. Really, really obvious, right? But ensure compatibility. We saw a lot of games that just didn't work very well across a number of devices. And the second one is even before the 1 or 2 seconds of gameplay, which are absolutely critical. The number of games that we judged based on just 1 or 2 seconds of gameplay, because here are people on this board who've played thousands and thousands and thousands of games. So the other thing is make sure that the user flow from the second the game is launched to the first second of gameplay is smooth, easy to understand. There were too many where there were obstacles or it was hard to understand the flow, or perhaps you saw a red arrow to progress, for example, not naming any names. Really basic UI errors, if you avoid those so that your player is getting straight into the fun without obstacles as quickly as possible, is to do that, to make that possible even without language. Because we all see the same way, even though we don't read the same way.
Yeah,
thank you.
So so my point was kind of similar, but just generally, like, you've done the really hard bit. Like, making games is really hard, and you've done that. So then don't lose to the easy bits. There's a lot of the games which hadn't been optimized for different devices, which is totally easy to do if you've just made it on one thing and tested it on one thing or a few similar things, and then we play it and the enemies are appearing off the edges of the screen, things like that. That's a really easy mistake to avoid, and you're falling down to little silly things, which is a shame because you've done the hard stuff. And the ways to avoid these things and the way to avoid and improve user experience flow is make sure you're testing games with different people. Don't just play it yourself. It feels really obvious, but it's a really easy thing to do, is just get inside your own head. And if you're going to send the game to a competition like the IMGA, then get someone else to download it and make sure the thing you're sending works, because so many times it sometimes just doesn't. And yeah, just make sure you're not falling prey to the silly things, I guess.
And one thing, don't do simulation games. Only simulation, you know. And there's no gameplay in it. So we had, I think, 2 or 3 games. It's only simulation.
Yeah,
you know?
they were not games.
Yeah, so it's really bad. I don't know how they, they were in the list anyway. And also I need to talk about education games. We had a lot of education games, but we didn't had a winner in education games. We had a section education games, but we had no winner. So they were cloning a game that won last year. This is really bad. So education is really important in our region to teach kids, grown-ups, anything. So it should be fun also. This is the problem. So a lot of people did education games, but it's not fun, no? So kids, when they want to play a game, they should be fun. And nowadays, kids are playing a lot of games, so they can't survive this game. So education plus fun is really important. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say I had like one more thing maybe to add. There's not so much about the finished project, more about the process of making games. Taking feedback's really hard. I think it might be one of the most difficult things because you're putting so much passion into your project, and then someone's gonna like maybe say bad things about it. So whatever feedback you get, I see a lot of people who immediately want to sort of jump on it and defend their game. Just take notes of it, think about it, sleep on it for 1 or 2 nights, and then decide what you're going to do with the feedback. You might think like, oh, actually that person had a good point, or the more you think about it, you go like, no, I don't think they understood the game right. How can I make sure that other players are? Yeah, just lots of testing and think about your feedback.
Oh, we have a question. Yeah.
Hi. So, question about the geographic coverage of the awards, IMGA.
Yeah.
Because, as I understand, this MENA you're including Turkey and Iran in MENA, right?
Yes.
2 huge countries,
yeah.
Different languages and different capabilities from the region.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels for the Arab developer, for the level of the Arab game developer, it kind of feels unfair, especially, for example, if you take Turkey, which is, they are much more advanced as an ecosystem in terms of games, in terms of all kinds of, online and digital content. And for example, they have a Voodoo studio opening there. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's true. What you're saying is true. Being a small country, I know everything about it because I'm Dutch, so it's a very, very small country. And there are not a lot of games, but some of the games are really good. You can't really say that there's a big ecosystem in the Netherlands, but we are competing with the United States and with others, and sometimes very successfully. So it doesn't mean very much, actually. A hit or a successful game can emerge anywhere. But it's true that it's more difficult in certain countries than in others. Like people from Iran, they have a lot of problems at the moment to getting their games out of the country. So if they, and I think we, if we see a good game, we should support it. The global competition is open for everybody, for every country. Even people from Greenland, they can submit. Or Africa, we have a few entries from Africa. Sometimes very surprising games where they make a lot of real world games. So you do things outside, and they integrate it.
You have the IMGA, the global one, and then you have the regional ones.
Yeah, we have two regional ones at the moment. We've put the Southeast Asian competition on pause for the time being, but with Chris Calderon, we're gonna push it again. We have a Chinese competition, which is very big. We have about over 1,000 entries each year. And then we have this competition.
Yeah, my concern is that the Arab talent might be overshadowed, or the game's not much appreciated because they are compared to something of a different caliber. If you have, for example, like a game like Odmar, which is the Apple Design Award winner last year, applying to the competition here, we don't stand a chance to even be visible, right? So, for a country like Turkey, from where we're looking is Europe, but from where you guys are looking is maybe the Middle East. But it's a huge country. It's not.
Yeah.
I would like to answer that. I prefer to be fourth or fifth in the first league to be the winner of the third league. We won't learn if we won't. Sorry, we won't learn if we won't compete with the best. If we all are still staying and doing, me, you, and you will do the same game, and we look at every time on it, and we play it all together, we will do the same even after 10 years. We have to play with the better and the bigger and see what they do, how to learn from them. I feel really sorry that as an event that we have not all the developers who made their games here. So you can guys talk and learn from each other. Probably you should do that as a developer, especially indie developers. One thing that I learned from my career in business development, that gaming industry is a very friendly industry, especially guys who have experience or bigger companies towards the indies. They answer always patiently, and I have a lot of examples even here who answer even stupid questions patiently and trying to help. So make use of it.
Yeah, and just one thing I would add to that, 10 years ago, no investor would put money into any company in Finland, and now look at where it is now. If you look at the demographics of the top charts and how it's evolved over the last 10 years, it's changed a lot. So I think it's just a matter of time, but it does take competition and it does take hard work to get there.
And Nokia.
Okay, well, thank you very much for being here, and see you all at 6 o'clock. Thank you.